Hello students, welcome back. This is the 10th tutorial class on operating system, and this class will be presented by myself Dr. Sudhir Mondal, Assistant Professor of Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering from Jalpaiguri Government Engineering College. So coming to the content of this class, in this class we shall cover a very important topic related with the operating system, that is the memory management. Uh, Apart from the formal definition, we shall also cover some important concept on like logical versus physical address, static versus dynamic loading, what is swapping, like fragmentation, compaction, etc. And we shall also discuss in detail like contiguous versus non-contiguous memory allocation technique. And we shall also discuss different advantages and disadvantages of them. And after that, we shall cover another important non-contiguous memory allocation technique, which is paging. Okay, now what is the paging, how it operates, all will be discussed in this class. And moreover, the concept of memory management unit or MMU, page table, all will be discussed one by one. Okay, so let's go to the first slide. Before starting the memory management, let's revise some of our basic concept on operating system. As you already know that in any computer system or any operating system, there are two types of memory are available to us. One is called primary memory or main memory, another is called secondary memory. So what is main memory? Main memory is nothing but where the CPU can directly access. Okay, and like example RAM. Okay, it is volatile in nature, but its size is small, but it is very fast. Okay, that is the called the main memory. And during the execution, and all the process or all the programs should be loaded into the main memory for the execution purpose. Okay, now the secondary memory, um, uh, s- mm, in any operating system there are lots of programs can exist, but as the size of the main memory is very small, it should be located into the external memory. Okay, and the example is like hard disk. Okay, either SSD hard disks or optical or magnetic hard disks, anything. Okay, so all the others programs should be located at this secondary memory, whose size is very large, like in terabyte or gigabyte. And but important thing is that CPU cannot access directly. Okay, although the program are located in the secondary memory or hard disk, but during execution it should be loaded into the main memory. Okay, and another disadvantage of the secondary memory is like slow speed. Okay, so CPU interact between the main memory and the process. Okay, whereas to access the process from the secondary memory, we need to use like cache or other CPU register to access them. Okay, so it should be keep in mind that CPU cannot access directly secondary memory. Okay, and so it is already written here that you can see here that for execution all the processes are needed to be transferred into the main memory or RAM. Okay, and that is the process are to be allocated in the memory address of the RAM. Okay, so suppose in the RAM conventionally like 2 GB RAM. So what do you mean by 2 GB RAM? That means there are 2 GB memory address are available to us where the program can be allocated or loaded. Okay, so it should be keep in mind that all the process should be loaded into the main memory for the execution purpose. That is the main concept, and it should be keep in mind. Now coming to the another important concept, that is the degree of multi-programming. In case of multi-programmed operating system, large number of program can be executed at the same time. Okay, so degree of multi-programming is nothing but that we should design the operating system, or we should design that overall process such that maximum number of process can be accommodated into the main memory, so that maximum CPU utilization can be achieved. Okay, so it should not be like this, like a process P1 is entered into the main memory and another process P2 are needed to be waited. Okay, so if there is available space into the main memory, So another process can enter into the main memory and they can both execute it at the same time. So that is the concept of the degree of multi-programming, where we mainly focused on the maximum utilization of CPU. Okay. Now coming to the formal definition of main memory management. Okay. So if you consider the uniprogramming system, the main memory, always it is always true that main memory is divided into the two part. One part is for operating system, and like initial monitor kernel of the operating system is loaded, and one part is allocated for the user program, where currently being executed. But the main thing is the uniprogramming. That means only one process or only one program can be executed by the main memory at the same time, at any time instance. Okay. But in case of multi-programming, there is always a part for the operating system where the kernel or monitor are loaded. But further, the user part of the main memory is subdivided into the many partition or many portion to accommodate or to allocate multiple number of processes. Okay. And this task of subdivision is carried out by the respective operating system, and it is known as the memory management. How the operating system manage the memory so that maximum number of processes can be accommodated or allocated to the main memory, that is known as the memory management. Moreover, operating system should also monitor which memory address is freed, which memory address can be allocated, further allocated to a new process. Okay. So all these things are coming under the memory management. Okay. So again, I'm telling that how the memory is managed or allocated to the processes during the execution of the programs so that maximum CPU utilization can be achieved is known as the memory management. And it also monitors which memory is freed currently and how that can be utilized further. So all these things are associated with the memory management. I think the concept of the memory management is clear to you. Okay. Now let's going to a block diagram which denotes the steps before or before being execution by CPU. Okay. So our aim is to execute a source program by the CPU. So let's observe how this program are executed. So you can see that at the initial we have the source programs. Okay. So at there is source program. So next we need to use the compiler or assembler. So by using the compiler or assembler, sorry, it this source program is converted into the object module. Okay. Now it is possible that during in any program or any program there may be others sub modules. Okay. So we need to link those module by using a linkage editor. Okay. So by using linkage editor, all the modules are converted into the uh, formal or simple module, or you need to load the respective module next. Okay. So you can see that others object module. So what is object modules? It like the function of a main program. So suppose we need to call the another function within a main program, so that is the others module. Okay. But we need to link them by using linkage editor. We can load all those module. Okay. So after the loading this module by using the loader, we get the binary image of the original source program. Here before loader also load the system library that is currently being used by any source program. Like in any C program there are lots of library is already used, like stdio.h, conio.h, etc, etc. So those are the system library. So we need to also call those library, or we need to also link those library during the execution. So by loading all those system library, other subject module and original object module, the actual binary image of the main program is being transferred into the CPU, and that is executed by the respective CPU. Okay. And moreover here it is also means should be remembered that it is quite possible that during execution system library can be loaded dynamically. Okay. So that is known as the dynamic linking. Here it is the static linking, but here it is the dynamic linking. Okay, and you should keep in mind that all programs should be transformed into the binary image, because computer or operating system only understand the 1010, that means binary. So by using this compiler and the loader, we convert the, or we create a memory image, sorry, binary memory image of the original source program. Okay, so here you can see that this is the compile time, and this is the load time to load the all the modules, and this is the execution time, that is needed to execute the program by the CPU. So we define these three times by using compile time. Like this is what is the compile time? The compile time is the time taken to compile the program or source code. Okay, and during the compilation, if memory location known a priori, then it generate the absolute codes. Okay, now what load time? Okay, next is the load time. So it added the, as the name suggests, load time. It is the time taken to link all related programs or file, or all related program file or libraries into the main memory. Okay, so it must generate the relocatable code if memory location is known at the compile time. Next is the execution time. Okay, so it is the time to execute the main program or the binary image of the source code or source program. So and it should be done by the processor or CPU. So that is the three important time that should be keep in mind. Okay, compile time, load time, and execution time. Okay, moving to the next part, the difference between static loading and dynamic loading. Okay, so loading means what? Loading means we need to load the others object module or the system library into the main memory to execute an original program. Okay, so there are two types of loading is possible. One is the static loading, and another is dynamic loading. Now if you have to load your program statically, so then at the time of the compilation, the complete program will be compiled and the linked without leaving any external program or module dependency. Okay, so so during static loading, all kinds of library and the others program that should be defined in the original source program. Okay, that means during execution, no further dynamic loading is possible, runtime loading is possible. Okay, so that is the static loading. And if you are writing a dynamically loaded program, then your compiler will compile the program, and for all the modules which you want to include the dynamically, only reference will be provided, and the rest of the work will be done at the time of execution. Okay, so dynamically loading is more flexible to us, where we don't need to load the all the libraries initially, but we can include those library dynamically, and we know don't need to define all the library, but we need to give some kind of reference in the program. Okay, and rest of the work will be done at the time of the execution. And next, coming to the static versus dynamic linking. So as we know that there should be some kind of loader that link between this object module. During the static linking will be used, and in static linking, if used, then the linker combine all the modules needed by a program into a single executable program to avoid any runtime dependency. Okay, so it is also an advantage for the static linking, as all the programs or all the modules are already defined in the original main program, so there is no runtime dependency. That means we don't need to call others library which is already in use. Okay, and in case of dynamic linking, it is not required to link the actual module or library with the program. Rather, a reference or the dynamic module is provided at the time of compilation and linking. Okay, so that is the dynamic linking. So dynamic linking is more flexible, but the load time for the dynamic linking will be less, because all the library is others library or object module are don't need to define at the time of the loading. Okay, that can be loaded at the dynamic or at runtime. Okay, so dynamic link libraries in Windows and shared object in Unix are good example of dynamic libraries. Okay, now coming to the another important concept, that is the logical address versus physical address. Okay, so what is logical address? We can basically, the memory is nothing but the a summation or group of memory, and memory, each memory location is denoted by memory address. Okay, so basically a CPU should only see the actually the memory address, and after that the content of that memory address is used by the respective CPU. So address is very important concept. Okay, so CPU is only concerned about the address of the respective memory location. Okay, and next the calculation, that is don't need to bother by the CPU. Okay, so logical address, what is logical address? The actual memory address which is generated by the CPU is referred is called as the logical address, and it is also called as the virtual address. During programming, or during the compiling the or during the execution, the generated initial address are known as the logical address, which is generated by the CPU. But what is the physical address? But this generated address is not actual address of the main memory. So actual actual address in the main memory is known as the physical address. Okay, so there should be some kind of process to convert between logical and physical address. Okay, so here it is written that the set of all logical address generated by a program is logical address space, whereas the set of physical address corresponding to those all logical address are a physical address space. Let's consider, suppose in MATLAB you define a matrix. Okay, and for each location there are some kinds like consider a matrix M. So there's some kind of like for first location, first row and first column M11, it denote an um address that is known as the logical address. Okay, 11. Now we need but 11 is logical address, that means it is a virtual address that is used by the respective CPU or programs. Okay, but whenever we access the content of that memory, okay, so so for that purpose we need to use physical address. Okay, so what is physical address? Physical address is the actual memory location in the original main memory or RAM. Okay, so that is the main memory, that is the main difference. So whenever we want to access the value of the uh, matrix at first row and first column, so we need to access the actual memory location of the RAM corresponding to the logical address of that matrix of first row and of first column. Okay, so the set of all physical address corresponding to the to those logical addresses are a physical address space. Okay, you can see that logical and physical address are the same in time of compile time and load time. It should be kept in mind, but during execution physical address become different. Okay, till the compiling and loading, physical and logical address are the same. It should be keep in mind, but during execution the logical address are converted into the different physical address, which is the actual memory location of the RAM. Okay, this now how can we convert this mapping? That means mapping means what? That means we need to map a logical address to the physical address. So how can we map this? So the runtime mapping of this logical address to the physical address is done by a hardware support or hardware device that is called as the MMU or the memory management unit. So you should keep in mind the functionality of the memory location unit, sorry, memory management unit. The main function of the memory management unit is to map the virtual address into the physical address. Okay, now what is the content or of the MMU? So basically in MMU there is a relocation register. Okay, now each value of the logical address each value of the logical address is added by the relocation register and create a new address which is corresponding to the physical address. So let's see the respective process. So you can see that suppose CPU generate a logical address 346. Obviously 346 is decimal number, but CPU generate actually in term of binary number 101010 like this way. Okay, so basically to for understand it, let's consider that this one is the logical address and it indicate the 346. Okay, now this is not the actual memory location in the main memory. Okay, now to convert this logical address into the physical address, we need to use the MMU. And in MMU, there is a relocation register. Suppose the content of the relocation register is 14000. Okay. Now, what should be done? That means we need to add this relocation register with the logical register. So ultimately, the output of the MMU is 14346, and it this actually denote the original memory address or actual memory address in the main memory. Okay, so if you want to access, if some CPU want to access the content of the address location 346, that means it should be keep in mind that CPU want to access the content of the memory location of 14346 of the original RAM or main memory. Okay, so by using the MMU, we can convert the logical address to the physical address. So that is the main difference. And in the upcoming slides, during the paging procedure, we can also see how logical address and logical address create physical address. Now, let's discuss about another important topic, that is the concept of swapping. So, what is swapping? As the name suggests, swap. That means we need to remove any process. Okay, so a process can be swapped or removed temporarily out of the memory to a backing store, and then again we can brought back into the main memory for continued execution. Okay, suppose consider a multi-programming environment. Okay, so it is possible that a high priority process has been reached. So for that, to execute that high priority process, we need to accommodate though that process into the main memory. Okay, so it is quite possible that we need to remove some less priority process from the out of the main memory so that we can load the high priority process and execute it. So that is nothing but the swapping. And after the completion of the high priority process, we can again swap in the um, earlier process from the secondary memory into the main memory. Okay, so that means we can swap the any process from the main memory to secondary memory, and again we can swap it back to the secondary from to the main memory. So that is the swapping concept. Okay, so yes, you can see that. So we suppose p1 process, suppose it is already in the, it is the secondary memory, or you can call it as the backing store. So at some time we can swap out p1 process from the main memory to the backing store or the secondary memory, and some high priority process that is already exist in the secondary memory, that can be swapped in into the main memory. Okay, so that is the schematic view of the swapping. And after the completion of the respective process, we can again swap in the respective p1 process. Okay, now another thing, that is the roll out and roll in. Okay, so what is the roll out, roll in? So that is quite similar to the swapping. Okay, basically this is the technical term that is used in the swapping. Okay, roll out, that means swap out is nothing but the roll out. So it is valid for the high priority process. Whenever a higher priority process arrives or wants service, the memory management can swap out the low priority process, and it can load and execute the high priority process. And when the high priority process finish, the lower priority process can be swapped back it and continued. And this variant of swapping is called rollout and roll in, rollout and roll in. Okay, and modified version of swapping are found on the main system like Unix, Linux and Windows like this. But the main problem is that during the swapping process, uh, we need to copy the original process or the content of the process like data others thing into the original secondary in the secondary memory. That means it takes lots of time. At that time, the CPU become idle and it does not uh, actually work at the time. Okay, so this is the concept of the swapping. And so let's coming to the uh, our original um, process or functionality of the memory management, and it is quite important function, that is the memory allocation. Okay, how can we allocate the memory to the process? That is nothing but the memory allocation. Okay, so the main memory must accommodate both the operating system and the various user process. Okay, so whenever we turn on any computer system or any other system, so initially the operating system should be loaded like kernel or monitor. Okay, now operating system, that means at the part of the main memory, that is the operating system is always loaded in the respective main memory. Okay, so the main memory is usually divided into the two partition. One is called the low memory and another called is the high memory. So operating system always reside in this type, in this part of the memory, that is the low memory. Okay, that means during whenever we switch on any device, any computer device, so operating system is always loaded. That means at some part of the main memory is always occupied due to the running of the operating system. Okay, now the next part is the high memory. So another others process apart from the operating system, those processes are reside into the high memory during the execution. So we can partition the main memory into two types. One is low memory, another is high memory. Low memory corresponding to the operating system, and high memory corresponding to the user's process. Okay, so obviously low memory required less address, less memory space. Okay, so that we can accommodate large number of others process into the main memory. Okay, next point is that there are following two ways that so that we can allocate the memory to the user process. One is the contiguous memory allocation, another is non-contiguous memory allocation. So let's see what is contiguous memory allocation, another is non-contiguous memory allocation. Contiguous memory allocation, so here the concept is that all the processes are stored in contiguous memory location. Now what is the concept of contiguous location, memory location? You can see that contiguous memory location can be viewed as the continuous memory location where all the processes can be loaded continuously and as a whole. Okay, so let's see. So to load multiple processes into the main memory, the OS must provide or must divide memory into the multiple partition for this process. Okay, okay, the part of the user process, that means the part of the high memory, yeah, this is the high memory, so where the user process can can reside, so that portion are divided into the multiple part, that is known as the partition. So original main memory is divided into the low memory and high memory. In low memory, OS is resided, and in the high memory, process can be loaded. But in case of contiguous memory allocation, what you can do, that we divide uh, the high memory of the high memory portion into the different number of partition. Okay, and this size is fixed. The number is fixed. Okay, and why do you call it contiguous? The whole process should be placed in a contiguous memory space of the main memory. You can call it as also continuous. Why do you continuous? Let's that can be explained in the later. So the concept is the whole process should be placed in a continuous memory space of the main memory location. That means within single partition. It should, that is the main funda. Okay, that a whole process should be placed within a single partition. It is not possible that we can place the part of any process in one partition, and we cannot place another part of the process into the others partition. Okay, so in case of contiguous memory allocation, we need to place whole memory, sorry, whole process. Suppose in a process P1 need 4 kilobyte address, 4 kilobyte memory. So we need to allocate 4 kilobyte memory into the single partition. We cannot divide it in case of contiguous memory allocation. Okay, so here that's why it is written that whole process should be placed in a continuous memory space of the main memory location within single partition. Part of the process is not able to place at different partition. Okay, so that is the main rule for the contiguous memory allocation. Now, okay, sorry for the interrupt, there is a technical problem. Okay, so where we are, where we were, I think in the, yeah, contiguous memory allocation. Okay, so as we already discussed that in case of contiguous memory allocation, the whole process should be placed in a continuous memory location of the main memory within a single partition, and part of the process is not able to place at the different partition. So that is the main feature of the contiguous memory allocation. Now, coming to the classification, that means according to the size of the partition, the contiguous memory allocation can be classified into the two types. One is fixed partition, which is also known as the static partition, and this is a variable partition, which is also known as the dynamic partition. Okay, so you can see that fixed partition and variable partition. So let's see the characteristic of the fixed partition. So in case of fixed partition of contiguous memory allocation, the main memory is divided into the number of static partition at the system generation time. So during the during the execution, the main memory is divided into the different static partition. That means fixed. Static indicate the fixed. Okay. So in this case, suppose you can consider this example. Suppose the size of the main memory is the 16 kilobyte. Okay. So if we use 4 partition, okay. So here you can see that all the size of the all the partitions are same, like 4 kb 4 kb 4 kb 4 kb, where different 4 process p0 p1 p2 p3 can be allocated. Okay, however in case of second variant of the fixed partition, you can see that although we used 4 partition, but the size of the partition are different. Here the size are 4 4 4 4, but here like 2 4 4 6. Okay, so here we can also say that a different process like p0 p1 p2 p3 can be allocated in the respective partition. But what are the advantages of the second type of fixed partition? You can see that like in case of 4 kilobyte, the size is fixed, it is not very varied. Okay, so if the uh, size of a incoming process is larger than 4 kilobyte, so it cannot accommodate into the respective partition. That means that process cannot be loaded into the main memory. So that is the restriction. But here the size of the partition are different, although that is fixed, but the different, like here you can see that one is 6 kilobytes. That means larger size process can be accommodated here. Okay, so this is the fixed partition. You can see that this is called as the fixed partition contiguous memory allocation, where there may be same or different size of partition, but the size of the partition is always fixed. So that is the main point. Now let's see the different disadvantages of fixed partition. First, that is the internal fragmentation. Suppose we initially consider uh, consider the first partition, that is the P0, and the incoming process is consider suppose P0, which whose size is 2 kilobyte only. So as it can see, the first partition is already available, so a process of size 2 kilobyte is assigned or allocated in the first partition of 4 kilobyte. But you can see that as the size of the process is 2 kilobyte, so obviously the rest of the memory of that partition is unused, or you can see that that is the wasted. Okay, so this is known as the internal fragmentation. So when internal fragmentation occurred, if a process with less size than the partition, then unused memory space of that partition is wasted, and that is known as the internal fragmentation. So that is the one disadvantage of fixed partition. Okay, let's move external fragmentation. So let's consider another scenario. Suppose in the first partition, P0 is already allocated, whose size is 2 kilobyte, and 2 kilobyte is already unused. Okay, and consider the second partition is occupied by the P1, and size of the P1 is the same as the partition, so there is no problem, no wastage of the memory. And in the third partition, again another process whose size is 2 kilobyte is already allocated to it, and again 2 kilobyte is wasted. And third partition is occupied is another process P3 of size P4 kilobyte. So you can see that for first partition and uh, third partition, total 2 kilobyte plus 2 kilobyte, total 4 kilobytes memory space remain unused. Okay, now consider that another new process is ready to be executed. Suppose consider P4 process whose size is 4 kilobyte, and that is trying to be loaded into the main memory. So you can see that although that 4 kilobyte memory is available to us, but it cannot be allocated to the new process, because the process size, suppose that in size of that process either 3 KB or 4, if the size of the process is either 3 kilobyte or 4 kilobyte, so that cannot be allocated in this unused area. Okay, because as this is the contiguous memory allocation, that means whole program should be allocated into the same area or same part or same partition. So we cannot use this unused memory space. So this is known as the external fragmentation. So if two process or more process with less size than the partitions, then the total unused memory space of this partition cannot be allocated to another process which is ready to enter into the main memory. That is the known as the external fragmentation. That means we cannot allocate the total unused space to external process or to a new process, because we are using the contiguous memory allocation where whole process should be placed into one partition, into a single one process partition. Clear? So this is the external fragmentation. So internal plus external. Now another process, you can see that like consider this type of contiguous memory allocation. So here you can see that where there are four partitions. Okay, 2 KB, 4 kilobyte, 4 kilobyte, 6 kilobyte. So another important problem is that here maximum 4 process can be assigned or allocate, and maximum size of that process should be 6 kilobyte, because the maximum size of the partition is 6 kilobyte. That means the process which have larger size than the maximum value of the partition, that cannot be allocated to it. So that is one problem. So process with larger size than the partition maximum partition size cannot be allocated. Okay, now another important thing, you can see that there are four partition. That means only four number of process can be allocated. Although we have some unused places or wasted places, that part cannot be allocated to it. That means only four process can be allocated in this scenario. Okay, So fixed number of process can be allocated. Okay, so here that means we can say that the degree of the multiprogramming is limited due to the contiguous memory allocation. Okay, so we cannot accommodate large number of process into the main memory due to the contiguous memory allocation technique. So those are the four disadvantages of fixed partition contiguous memory allocation technique. First one, internal. Second one is the internal fragmentation. Second one is the external fragmentation. Third one is the uh, maximum size of the process, and fourth one is the fixed number of process that can be allocated. Okay, clear? Now coming to the variable partition, or we can call it as the dynamic partition. So as the name suggests, variable or dynamic, that means that can be changed. So here the main concept is that uh, the partition can be with variable length. That means uh, the the size of the partition is not fixed. You can see that here in case of fixed partition there are total four number of partition, and suppose for the first partition the size of the partition is 2 kilobyte, 4 kilobyte, 4 kilobyte, and 6 kilobyte for the others. Okay, now the size of the first partition is fixed 2 kilobyte. Size of the second partition is 4 kilobyte, third is for 4 kilobyte, and the size of the fourth one is 6 kilobyte. This size is fixed, although although different size, but the size is fixed. That means 2 kilobyte cannot never be 1 kilobyte, or 4 kilobyte cannot be never 3 kilobyte. Okay, so that is the difference between fixed and variable. In case of variable partition, the we allocate the memory which is needed by the process. So with this partition, the partition are variable length and number. You can see that the number is also variable and the size is also variable. Okay, so when a process is brought into the memory, it is allocated exactly as much memory is required by it, no more. Suppose consider P0 process. Okay, so suppose P0 process, that is the first process which is ready to be loaded into the main memory, and its size is 2 kilobyte. Okay, so you can see that uh, we should allocate only 2 kilobyte to the P0 process, not not greater than that. Okay, so suppose P1 process which is less size, like 1 kilobyte. So we allocate only 1 kilobyte partition to that process. Like this way it will be continued. So you can see that uh, by using this type of partition, where the length and the number of the partition are variable, you can see that here there is also 16 kilobyte operating system, no, sorry, main memory available to us, but we can allocate 5 number of process, and we can allocate also 8 kilobyte or larger size process. So that is the main advantages than the fixed type of partition. So where the here the variable partition with different number and size. Okay, so that is the my main feature of the variable partition, where the size and the number of the partition are variable. The exact amount of memory is allocated to the process which is required by it. Okay, and not more than it will be allocated. Clear? So that is the variable partition or dynamic partition. Okay, now advantages. So you can see that as we allocate only the memory space which is required by the respective process, so there will be no internal fragmentation. Okay, so no internal fragmentation, as no unused memory spaces during the allocation. Okay, now so that is the advantages. Now second advantage, no limit on the size of the process. If the uh, available respective main memory is available to us, so there is no limit on the size of the respective process. If we have available 16 kilobyte memory to us, we can easily accommodate or allocate 16 kilobyte process. Okay, or 12 kilobyte or 10 kilobyte, so there is no limitation. And obviously more number of process can be executed at a time. Okay, that means as there is no unused process, no unused memory space, so obviously more number of process can be executed. Okay, So the important concept is that we allocate the amount of memory which is required by respective process, and that's why there is no wastage. And for that purpose, no internal fragmentation, and limit on no limit on the size. Obviously, that should be less than the available memory, and the more number of process can be executed at a particular time instance. Okay, but the disadvantages. So let's. But here it suffer again by external fragmentation. Okay, it should be remembered that variable partition is also a contiguous memory allocation techniques. That means whole process should be keeping in uh, inside a only single partition. So that is the main concept. That should be applicable for fixed partition also or variable partition also. So here, for that reason, variable partition also suffers from the external fragmentation. So let's see how it happens. So consider the earlier cases. Suppose uh, for this particular cases, uh, first 2 kilobyte partition is assigned to P0. Okay, so next 1 kilobyte process is assigned to P1. But after the execution or completion of the respective process, suppose it completes the respective execution, and so obviously this memory allocation will be free. Okay, that means these memory spaces should be released by the respective process so that others process can access it. So we can call it technically as a whole. Okay, so when a process complete execution and release the memory, the release memory or free memory are called as or termed as whole. So you can see that there is a whole with a size of 1 kilobyte, and others two processes like 2 kilobyte 8 kilobyte, that those are already allocated to the P2 process and P3 process. Okay, and which whose size is exactly 2 kilobyte and 8 kilobyte. Okay, now the last process, that is P4, that is also completes its execution and it release memory 3 kilobyte. Okay, so there is a two whole. One is for size of 1 kilobyte and another is of 3 kilobyte. Okay, so total size, total available size is 4 kilobyte. So whole size is 4 kilobyte. But you can see that although we are using variable partition techniques, but it cannot be allocated to another new process which has size of 4 kilobytes. Suppose there is another new process P5 which is ready to enter into the main memory, and its size is 4 kilobyte. Although we have available size of 1 kilobyte plus 3 kilobyte, that is 4 kilobyte whole size, but we cannot allocate the 4 kilobyte to the new process which size is also 4 kilobyte. Why? Because we are still following the contiguous memory allocation. That means the there should be there should be that means P5 should be placed in one partition whose size is at least 4 kilobyte. So that is the main feature of the contiguous memory allocation. That means whole process should be placed in a single partition. Here you can see that for different partition, although the size is same as the process, so but it cannot be allocated to that different partition. Okay, so you can see that, but total available memory may not be allocated to other process due to the contiguous nature of the memory allocation. So we can conclude that variable partition technique is still suffer from the external fragmentation. Okay, now coming to the next part, partition selection policy. So when the multiple memory hole are large enough to contain a process, the operating system must use an algorithm to select in which hole the process will be loaded. Suppose we have here you can see that like there is two hole, 1 kilobyte and 3 kilobyte. Suppose there is another process whose size is 2 kilobyte. Okay, so how that process of size 2 kilobyte will be allocated to it? So obviously it will check first. It is quite possible that if we use this kind of rule, that is check the first hole. So as the size is less than the process size of 2 kilobytes, so uh, that means that process will be not allocated to it. And as the size of the hole is 3 kilobyte, that means a process with size 2 kilobyte can be allocated to it. So here there are four rules or four algorithm that can be followed to select the particular holes, or that's particular hole for the new allocation. So here you can see that fast fit. So what is the fast fit technique? Here, the OS look at all section of the free memory, and the process is allocated to the first hole found that is big enough size than the size of the process. Okay, so it will check the first hole, and if its size greater than the process size, so that will be allocated to the respective process. Okay, next fit. The next fit start at the last hole allocated, and the process is allocated to the next hole found that is big enough size than the size of the process. So first fit, that means it will start from the initial point, and the next fit is it will start from the last. So first hole, in case of first fit we start from the first hole, and in case of next fit we start from the last hole. That is the main difference, other it is same. Now the waste fit. In case of the waste fit search, the entire list of the hole to find out the smallest hole that is big enough size than the size of the process. Suppose we have three holes like whose size are like 4 kilobyte, 3 kilobyte, and 4 kilobyte. Okay, and suppose we have another process whose size which is ready to be entered into the main memory, whose size is also 3 kilobyte. So using the best fit technique, so we should search the holes which have the exact amount of, or which is the best fit with the process. Okay, that means which find the smallest hole that is big enough to accommodate that process. That means 3 kilobyte hole will be allocated to the process. Okay, although 4 kilobyte hole and others 4 kilobyte hole, although that also be allocated to the new process, but if you are using the waste fit technique, we should find out the smallest hole that is big enough to capture to accommodate that process. Okay, now the worst fit. So in case of worst fit, it is the reverse of the waste fit. So okay, so in case of the worst fit search the entire list of the hole to find the largest hole that is big enough size than the size of the process. So if you consider the earlier cases, so obviously the new process with size 3 kilobyte will be allocated to the 4 kilobyte hole. Okay, it will not consider the smallest hole, it will consider the largest hole. So first fit, that will start the it will start to find out the first hole. Next fit, it will try to find out the suitable last hole, and waste fit, it will try to find out the smallest hole that is big enough to allocate that process, and worst fit, it will try to find out the largest hole that will be big enough to uh, allocate the respective process. So these are the four techniques that are used for the partition selection or hole selection policy by the new process. Okay, now coming to the compaction, it is another important concept in the operating system. So what is compaction? The main disadvantages of the external fragmentation is that although we have available or unused memory space at different partition, but we cannot allocate to a new process, although the overall or total unused process uh, is larger than the size of the process. Okay, so these advantages can be reduced by the compaction process. So what is compaction? As the name suggests, we make the memory compact. Okay, so that means we need to shuffle the partition. Okay, we need to shuffle the memory address or memory content to place all free memory together one large block. Here you can see that if we consider the earlier scenario, second and fifth partition are free or considered as whole, but we cannot allocate 4 kilobyte memory to the others process. So here what we need to do, that means we are shuffling the memory spaces. Okay, so p0, p2, p3, that means 2 kilobyte, 2 kilobyte, 8 kilobyte, these are used or allocated process allocated memory spaces by the respective process p0, p2, p3 respectively. So we just shuffling the order. That means we are making all the used spaces to one side, and we are keeping others unused process to the another side. Okay, and so 1 kilobyte and 3 kilobyte, these are two partition which are freed now, and we can make and we can make only one partition, only one partition by using this two free partition. Okay. Okay, so we can create one large block of 4 kilobyte memory, and after that, by creating that, we can allocate another process of size 4 kilobyte in that large block. Okay, so the goal is to shuffle the memory content to place all free memory together in one large block. So that is a compaction. Okay, now when the compaction is possible, the compaction is possible only when relocation is dynamic and is done at execution time. So that is that should be keep in mind that uh, this compaction is applicable in runtime. But the main problem is that compaction is complicated and time consuming process, because we need to reshuffle or need to shuffle the memory address and memory content. Okay, that means we need to copy that sorry, you need to copy that memory content at this partition to the second partition like this way. So obviously it will take some time. Okay, so that's why compaction is time consuming process to relocate the memory, but it will help to overcome the disadvantages of the external fragmentation. Okay, so that's all from the contiguous memory allocation, where we should keep in mind that a whole program should be placed in a single partition. That means no division in the process is allowed. Okay, now coming to the non-contiguous memory allocation, as the name suggests, non-contiguous. So it is allowed to store the process in non-contiguous memory location. Okay, so here the concept is that uh, a process can be divided into a part, like consider P0 process. Okay, let's consider the size of the process is 8 kilobyte. Okay, now if in case of non-contiguous, sorry, if you are using contiguous memory allocation, so we need to place total 8 kilobyte process into a single partition. But here in case of non-contiguous memory allocation, the nature is non-continuous. That means we can divide the process into part. Okay, so like suppose initially 2 kilobyte memory is available to us, so we can place the 2 kilobyte part of the respective process into that partition. Okay, and suppose consider the second part of the process which has size 3 kilobyte, so that can be placed into another partition. Okay, and third part is placed into this this partition, and fourth one is placed into the last partition like this. So you can see that different part of the process are allocated at the different partition of the process. So that is the main difference of between contiguous and non-contiguous memory allocation. Okay, so here that's why we have written that the part of a whole process may be placed in non-continuous memory space of memory location, that is a different memory location. Okay, here some part is already allocated here. You can see that this portion is contiguous for the p1 process, this one is contiguous for the p1 p2 process. But if you consider the p0 process, you can see that part of the process is allocated at different partition. So that's why you call it as the non-contiguous memory allocation. Now we can classify the non-contiguous process into mainly like three process: paging, segmentation, virtual memory paging, or demand paging, etc. Okay, so all the details of these techniques will be discussed one by one. Okay, now coming to the paging technique, which is very important techniques for the non-contiguous memory allocation technique. Okay, so we define paging is a memory management scheme that permits the physical address space of a process to be non-contiguous. Okay, the basic concept of the paging is that the physical address of the process should be non-contiguous. And here, in spite of dividing or allocating the main memory at the runtime, or in spite of creating the partition at the during the runtime, we divide the main memory into a equal size block like 16 kilobyte. consider the size of the memory is 16 byte. Now if we consider a block of size 2 byte, that means we can create 8 number of equal size blocks. Now these are called as the frames. So in case of paging, we divide the main memory into the equal size of blocks that are called frames, and this division is already done into the is already done before the execution. Okay, so main memory is divided into the equal number of blocks frames. So main memory divided into the frames, and each process is also divided into the equal size of block of the same length as frames, and these are called the pages. So you can see that here you can see that the process is divided into the four part, but the size of the process are different: 2 kilobyte, 3 kilobyte, 2 kilobyte, 1 kilobyte. Okay, so this sub process, the size of the sub process are different. But if we use the paging, what we can do, we can classify, suppose the size of this process is 8 kilobyte, so you can classify into the four sub process. Okay, and technically you can call it as page, four pages, and whose size is uh, 8 by 4, that is 2. Okay, so the concept is that main memory should be divided into the equal size block, that is called frames, and process is divided into equal size of blocks, that is and the size of the blocks are same as the frame size, and this equal number of sorry equal size of block of process are known as the pages. Okay, and that is another thing it should be keep in mind, that frame size and page size is same. Okay, the concept is that we should place the pages or the part of the process into the respective frame or in any frame. That's why the size of the frames or size of the page should be same. So the in case of paging, the concept is that we should divide the main memory into the frames, or that is the equal size blocks, and we divide the process into the pages into the equal size blocks. Okay, and frame size and page size should be same. Okay, that means if the page frame size is 2 byte, that means the size of the pages should be also 2 byte. Okay, and during the execution, that part of the process, that is pages, should be loaded into the respective frames or available frames. Okay, so when a process is to be executed, the pages are loaded into any available memory frame from the backing store. Okay, and it should be keep in mind that here logical memory address is also converted into the physical memory address. How it will convert, let's see. So suppose we consider a process whose size is 4 byte. Okay, so obviously uh, and we are assuming the size of the page is 2 byte. So how can what is the number of pages per process? That means 4 by 2, that is 2. So we defined first page as page 0 and second page as page 1, and as the size of the process is 4 byte, so we are mentioning that first 2 byte is related with the page 0, and second 2 byte are related with the page 1. Okay, so 0 1 2 3, this 0 1 2 3 indicate the bytes of the process. As CPU, when the CPU will run the process, it will try to find out the content of those byte. Now those bytes, like what is the content, or what is the content in the this byte, what is the content in the third byte, sorry yes. So 0 1 2 3, so total four number of 4 bytes, and if we consider the page size is 2 byte, so number of pages is 2. So that is the for the process. Now if we consider the main memory, let's consider the main memory size is 16 byte, and as we considering the process size is same as the frame size. Okay, so frame size will be 2 byte. Okay, so what will be the number of frame? So the number of frame will be 16 by 2, that is 8. So there will be some 8 number of frames. Okay, so you can see that total memory available main memory is divided into the 8 number of frames: f0, f1, f2, f3, f4, f5, f6, f7. Obviously there is another part of low memory where CPU, sorry, where the OS will remain. So we are neglecting at that time. So here just we considering the high memory, okay, where the user process or pages can be loaded. So you can see that total 16 byte memory addresses are divided into the 8 number of frames: f0, f1, f2, f3, f4, f5, x6 and f7. It should be keep in mind that the starting index of frame or pages should be from 0. So 0 1, 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Okay, so as the frame size is 2 byte, that means for the first frame we have available first two memory address 0 1. For the second frame we have available memory address of 2 and second and third, 4 and fifth for the frame 2, 6 and 7 for frame 3, 8 and 9 for the frame 4, 10 and 11 for the frame 5, 12 and 13 for frame 6, and 14 and 15 for frame 7. Okay, so that is the page and frame, concept of page and concept of frame. Process are divided into the page, and memory are divided into the frame. The basic rule is that size of the frame should be same as the size of the process, size of the pages. Okay, so what is the necessity of that? That means if you want to avoid the external fragmentation, so in that scenario we need to make same size of process, sorry, of page and frame. Okay, as the content of the page or the page will be, or the content of the pages will be loaded in the respective frame. That means if the size of both of them are same, there will be no unused spaces. That means there will be no external fragmentation. So that's why, to have optimum utilization of the main memory and to avoid the external fragmentation, the size of the frame is same as the size of the pages. Clear? Okay, now uh, allocation. So obviously we need to allocate the content of the pages into the respective available frames. So let's consider that first two frames f0, f1 are not available, f3 is not available, f5, f6 and f7 is not available. Now consider another process p1, which have size of 4 byte and which have two pages, page 0 and page 1. Okay, now as we are using non contiguous memory allocation technique, that means that means part of the process can be allocated to the respective memory location. So in case of paging, this is also non-contiguous memory allocation technique. So first page, that means first part of the process is allocated to the respective frame. Suppose the available frame is f2, so this should be allocated to the fourth and fifth frame. And second page 1, should be allocated to the next available frame, that is f4, 8 9. So here it is interesting fact is that 0 1 2 3 basically it denote the logical address. Okay, and 4 5 8 9 basically this denote the physical address. So obviously 0 1 2 3 should be mapped into the 4 5 or 8 9 respectively. So 0, if we consider the page 0 as page 0 is allocated to the frame 2, that means the 0 logical address 0 is corresponding to the physical address 4, and 1 logical address is corresponding to the physical address 5. That means there should be some kind of mapping technique. Okay, similarly 2 3 logical address of the page 1 should be mapped into the 8 9 for the frame 4. Okay, respectively frame 4, you can see that for frame probe the 8 the memory address is 8 and 9, so 2 3 should be corresponding to the 8 and 9. Okay, yeah, let's assume the page 0 is allocated to the f2 and page 1 is allocated in f4 frame. So pages are put into the frames. So how can be done? Okay, so how allocation can be done? Okay, so consider a scenario like 3 this memory address 3 for the page 1 and is allocated to the f4. Okay, so obviously 3 corresponding to the page 1 is 9 corresponding to the f4. So logical address 3 that should be mapped into the logical address 9 in the respective frame. Okay, so how can we convert it, logical address 3 into the physical address 9? So for that purpose we need a memory management unit, MMU. So memory management unit helps logical address to convert into the physical address of the main memory. So for that purpose memory management unit use a page table. Okay, so what is the page table? So in page table, in column we put the frame number, and in row we put the page number. Okay, so basically it indicate which page is allocated into the which frame. So as you already know that page 0 is already allocated to the frame 2, and page 1 is allocated to the frame 4. Okay, so that should be that should be keeping into the respective page table. Okay, so when the system allocate a frame to any pages, and it translate the logical address into the physical address and create entry into the page table to be used throughout the execution of the program. And okay, so this page table for the respective process should be keep in mind, should be saved. Okay, so that this page table can be used throughout the execution of the program. Okay, so whenever we want to access or we want to convert some logical address into the physical address, so we need to use that page table. Okay, so page table is nothing but the relationship between frame number and page number. Okay, so so in column we put the frame number, and in row we put the page number. So which page is put into the which frame, that is the nothing but the page table. So you can see that page 0 is put into the frame number 2, and page 1 is put into the frame number 4. So that is the page table for the earlier example. Okay, and it should be saved. Now let's see how we can convert logical address 3 into the physical address of 9 using the page table. Okay, so you can see that the logical address 3, you can see that the size of the pages or size of the process is 4 byte, 4 byte. Okay, so to denote the value 4, we are if we are omitting the concept of byte b byte. So if we so to indicate different 4 value, so we need 2 bit, we need 2 bit to express it. Okay, so there is 0 1 2 3, all 4 combination is possible. So we can, by using only 2 bit like 0 0 0 1 1 0 and 1 1, we can indicate different 4 logical address. So basically this can be indicated by 0 0, this one 0 1, this one 1 0, and this is 1 1. Okay, so we can we need 2 bit to represent logical address. And the physical address, you can see that we are considering the 16-bit physical address from 0 to 15. Okay, so memory size is 16 byte. Okay, so to represent that 16, we define 16 byte. Okay, so we need different 4 bit, as 2 to the power 4 equal to 16. Okay, so by using different 4 bit of like 0 1, we can express the physical address. For an example, like for 0 0 0, it indicate the first frame, the first memory address 0. So 0 0 0 1, it indicate one memory address of frame 0, like this way. So we need 4 binary bit, here we need 2 binary bit. So 2 binary bit for logical address, 4 binary bit for physical address. Okay, now logical address can be expressed by using page number and page offset. Okay, and physical address is expressed in term of frame number and frame offset. Okay, so like consider this example, logical address 3. So whenever we are using, or we want to use the logical address 3, so we should check in which page it belong. We know that it belong into the page number 1. Okay, now page number 1. So there are two pages. To indicate two pages, we can use only one bit, 1 or 0. That means 0 indicate page 0 and 1 indicate page 1. So that denote page number. So first, as it is in page 1, so we should write here 1. And page offset, as we are considering, as we are considering 2 byte of page size. Okay, this is the size of the pages, 2 byte. So the as it is in second position, so that means 3 corresponding to the, that means second position is indicated by 1. Okay, so 1 1 is equivalent to 3. Again, I am discussing how page number and page offset can be allocated. So binary value of page 1 is 1. Okay, as there are two pages, page 0 and page 1. So page 0 correspond denote by the 0, and page 1 is indicated by 1. And page offset, okay, how can we page of what is page offset? As 3 is in second position of the page number 1, so second position is indicated by always 1. So zeroth position of the first byte in page, and first, sorry, zeroth indicate denotes the first byte in the page, and first denote the second byte in the pages. So ultimately the logical address become 3, sorry, 1 1. So 1 1 is equivalent to 3. Okay, now coming to the physical address. So physical address consists of frame number and frame offset. It should be keep in mind that frame offset and page offset should be same, as page size and the frame size are same. So page offset and frame offset should be same, because like uh, second position of the page 1 is equivalent to the second position of the frame 4. So here we should keep in mind that second position is constant. So that's why page offset is nothing but equivalent to the position of that of that address. So page offset is one, page offset and frame offset should be same. So that's why it should be also 1. Okay, now how page number is converted to the frame number? So whenever we are using 1, here it is already 1, so it should be, look into the page table. So page 1 is corresponding to the F4. Okay, frame number 4. Now how can we represent frame number 4? So to represent frame number 4, we can use 3 bit. Okay, so how can, why should we use 4 bit? Because look at the frame number, there are 8 number of frame. So to represent 8 number of frame, so we need 3 bit only. However, to represent the total 16 byte memory, we need 4 bit. But however, to represent 8 number of frames, we need only 3 bit through 3 byte. Okay, so you can see that 4 is represented by 100, 3 bit only. So binary value of frame 4 is 100, and 3 bit is required to represent 8 frame only. Okay, and similarly here you can see that 0 first 0 denote the first byte in frame, and first denote the second byte in frame. You can see that, yeah. So 0, that means 8 or 9. So when for frame offset, this address location corresponding to the frame offset of 0, and all this value corresponding to the second column, all this corresponding to the frame offset of 1. So that's why we are using 1. So now we are getting 1001, and we already know that 1001 is equivalent to the 9. So you can see that by using page table, we can convert a logical address of 3 into the physical address of 9. Okay, and logical address, it should be keep in mind that consists of page number and page offset, and physical address consists of frame number and frame offset. But it should be remembered that page offset and frame offset should be same. Okay, and by using page table, we can change the page number into the frame number. Okay, clear? So that is an example that how can we convert physical address, sorry, logical address into the physical address into the, by using paging technique. So paging technique is basically a very important uh, characteristic. Okay, so by using this technique, we can avoid the external class segmentation, internal fragmentation. Okay, sorry, no, internal fragmentation is not applicable. We can avoid the external fragmentation by using paging technique, and we can utilize the CPU in very efficient manner. But it also suffers in internal fragmentation. Why? Because consider this example. Here we are considering process size is 4 byte and page size is 2 byte, and page size is same as the frame size 2 byte. Okay, that means suppose uh, if a process which have size 1 byte, and that can be also allocated to the respective frame, but as the frame size is 2 byte, so obviously remaining 1 byte is unused by the um, process by the main memory or by the CPU. So that means internal fragmentation is applicable for the paging technique also. Okay, so this is the paging, all that's all from the paging. So coming to the conclusion, so we have studied what you have studied, that formal definition of memory management, and also study the concept of logical and physical address, difference between static and dynamic loading, and difference between static and dynamic linking, different steps to run a particular process, and the concept of swapping is also clear to you, I think. And next, the coming to the next one, so main part, that is the contiguous and non-contiguous memory allocation. So in contiguous memory allocation, a whole part of the process, whole process should be placed in a single partition, but that is not applicable in case of non-contiguous memory allocation. And in this class, we are also study paging, which is one of the example of non-contiguous memory allocation technique, and where we are using main memory memory management unit and page table to convert logical address into the physical address. Okay, logical address is corresponding to the different pages, and physical address is corresponding to the frames. So we are also see an example how can you convert this logical address into the physical address by using page table. And also apart from it, we also study the concept of fragmentation. So fragmentation is nothing but the unused spaces or wasted spaces or memory spaces, okay, that cannot be allocated to a another process, and fragmentation can be removed by the compaction procedure, where we can reshuffle the memory location. Okay, so that's all, these are the reference, and if you have any problem, please post them. Thank you.